And the boys are back after all the action has concluded, ladies and gentlemen. The King of Queens podcast is back. I'm Adam Denker. Alongside me is B-Rad, Bryan Wysocki, all the way from
B-Rad G
Poland.
up in the heezy. What is up,
Uh,
y'all?
people, Brian's
Peace.
married now. Brian's married. I think that is why the Mets lost, because they could no longer have a chance of sleeping with him. So that's why they
Yeah,
lost.
yeah.
But
Well, if the Mets were anything, they wouldn't have any morals. So I wouldn't suspect a ring around anyone's finger stopping anyone.
All right, so yeah, obviously the conversation we're gonna have today is about Game 3 of that just absolute disaster of an ending to the Mets season, in which they could only muster one win and ended up losing one hit, excuse me, and it could only muster up
One win too in the
one
series.
win
So there
too.
you
Yeah,
go.
and they end up losing 6-0 to the Padres, who go on to face the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Brian, we lose Game 1, we come back with DeGrom, we win Game 2. What were your thoughts going into Game 3? Personally, me, I was like, we got Bassett on the mound. We need to have a career night from Bassett on the mound, and obviously we did not get that. And as soon as I feel like that first run scored for San Diego, all the air in Citi Field was let out of the balloon, and that was pretty much it. That as soon as the Padres scored their first runs in the second inning, I really think that was when the game ended there. Not in the ninth, but in the second inning. But yeah, what were your thoughts going into Game 3? Expectations as opposed to how you felt afterwards.
Yeah. So going into Game 3, full disclosure, I didn't even watch the game. So I got home. So over here in Poland, it started, I guess, at 1 o'clock. At 12:30, I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. Full knowing that I didn't expect the Mets to win that game. Because for me, the season ended a week ago when they got swept by the Braves. And regardless of how they played in Game 2, I just really didn't have any confidence in Game 3. And and when I woke up in the morning, not even the morning, I guess it was like 4:30, and the first text was from Adam. So when I saw that, I'm like, all right, let me check the ESPN app. They got one hit, and I'm like, all right, you know. And Adam, I think also this goes back. Before we even started this pod, right? The goal for the Mets was to have meaningful games in September. And they did that. They did have
Yeah.
meaningful games, which they lost. Which they lost. They had so many meaningful games in September. Winning one against Atlanta, not getting swept against the Braves, not losing 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, giving one up to the Athletics when they were up 3-0. DeGrom just bombing that start. There were so many meaningful games in September, and they just couldn't get the job done. Just going into that series, and regardless of even if they'd been, the fact that for me, I thought the season ended the week prior when they got swept by Atlanta.
Yeah.
I just felt that, it was all leading. Dude, they led the division for 175 days out of 180, and they still lost, and and I think this also goes, whenever you speak to a girlfriend or something, I woke up, I wasn't even mad, I was just disappointed. And when you hear that, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, that's even so much worse, because you just expect so much from them, and as the Mets usually do, they break your heart. But my heart's been broken so many times that and there's so much amazing things that happened in the regular season. Pete
Yeah.
Alonso tied for RBI. Jeff McNeil led baseball in hitting.
Yeah. And
There was
that and
just
that's the thing about this season that I think a lot of people are going to look at, that when you look at how it was going as to how it ended, I think the one thing that a lot of people could agree on with this Mets team was that how likable they were, and I feel like at certain times overachieving, and then when they were playing at that level, like you said, at in first place for 175 out of 180 games, it you kind of felt like, okay, we're not the underdogs anymore. We're kind of the top of the cream of the crop. And I'll admit, I was one of those people who fell victim to the MLB weekly rankings, where the Mets would usually be in the top 3, top 5, with the likes of the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Astros, teams like that, where, really in years past, we would be lucky if we even sniffed the top 15. And And so but I was, yeah, to echo your point, I was not the least surprised that we lost game three. To be honest, I was not the least surprised we got swept by the Braves. And yeah, that was really the nutter shut up moment, I think, for this team when you look back on the season, is that it was that Braves, and they were faltering even though the Mets were winning games up into that point, leading into that series with the Braves. You still kind of felt like they kind of somewhat lost their mojo. And that was really, I think, going into that type of atmosphere in Atlanta. And I don't know if you've seen the videos, Brian, now that the Braves, they do this thing where um, when a pitcher on the opposing team leaves the game, I believe it was the game when DeGrom got knocked out early. They shut down all the lights in the stadium and they just have red beams and they do the chop, the Atlanta chop during, and which, by the way, the Cardinals do it too when they bring in the closer. But look where they are now. They don't play. They're not playing baseball either.
Yeah.
So but what I'm trying to get at is that I feel like the moment became too big for this Mets team in Atlanta, and that was kind of the playoff game before the playoff game. I
Yep.
felt like if the Mets at least came out of that series even, or at least or winning it, I think we would be having a
One,
different
Adam, just
conversation
one
now. Yeah,
game, one
yeah,
game, and they controlled their destiny. One game,
yeah,
and I've been listening, all the Mets podcasts, right? Evan Roberts, Rico Bonia. I think that's my go-to now.
yeah.
Evan, I
That's
think
the
he has
best one.
such a
I
good
think that's a
take.
great one.
Evan, shout out. And he was right. They just looked scared that entire series. They didn't look up for it, and the Braves were. The Braves are World Series champs. They've won 5 NL East divisions in a row, and they took it from the
Yeah,
Mets. They took it from the Mets,
yeah,
and that's just what it is. And the most frustrating thing is the Mets had their three dogs in that game,
yeah,
and they came up short, all of them. Same thing. Scherzer, 2 starts in a row, small. And DeGrom, he pitched okay. I'll give DeGrom that in the playoff. He won game two. And
yeah.
Bassett, short again. So, you know, it was all lined up and they just couldn't get the job done. So, and, which was so unfortunate because the whole season they did, right?
Yeah,
Up until the last few starts, DeGrom was pretty great until the Oakland series. And then he had a few other, spotty starts. But when DeGrom came back his first 6 starts, you're like, this is DeGrom. This is it.
yeah.
The World Series or bust. But they just couldn't get the job done. So,
And I said that before game two, and I think I told you as well, is that we needed to see that kind of performance from DeGrom. We needed to get vintage DeGrom in that game because we knew we weren't going to win that game by hitting. You know,
no.
it was going to be the pitching that was really gonna be the huge catalyst for this team. And yeah, we could sit here and talk about the way the bats did not perform, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But the pitching really was just not there. Sure, like yeah, like Scherzer game one was just the shell of himself, and I don't know how much you hear over there, but here, the talk on all, not even the Met podcast, but all the other podcasts out there for baseball is that Scherzer is pitching with an injury. It must be the oblique or something. Then don't pitch. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a big game. It's game one of the wild card. You can't afford to mess up any game. That I think those games are more intense than maybe a best of seven. Obviously, if you mess up a game, you could come back and try and win the next two or three or whatever the case may be. You lose game one, you're fighting for your life in game two, and that's when all hands are on deck, and that's why Buck rolled out Diaz. And speaking of rolling out Diaz, I mean I don't know if you've seen this on social media, Brian, but in game three, Buck rolls out Edwin Diaz in the eighth inning to get six
And they're
outs.
losing, 4-0, and they're
And they're
still
losing
playing
4-0.
trumpets.
And I
Yeah.
don't mind him coming out playing Narcos. That's his song that gets him pumped up. But I thought we were past this with the Wilpons. I thought this kind of behavior in terms of not reading the moment was behind
Uh,
us when I was like, they're not going to do it. They're not going to
well,
do it.
no,
And
no.
then they cut to Mr. Met playing the trumpets on top of the dugout. I was like, get down. What are you doing? We're down by
I
4 runs.
I mean, we could even just take this back to the Dodger series
Yeah,
when they won, before September. The
yeah,
Mets took 2 out of 3 heading into September against the Dodgers. And Jerry Seinfeld said,
yeah,
that's bullshit. And you don't do that. And, that's bad juju.
yeah,
Jerry Seinfeld, if Jerry Seinfeld doesn't think if he thinks that's over the top, then it is. And it was great at the moment. The Mets are flying high. Let's bring in Timmy Trumpet. They lost game one of that Dodger series, or Edwin Diaz didn't come in. They're like, Timmy, come back again, game two. And sure enough, Timmy comes on, Edwin comes on, they win that game. But, looking back at it, that's okay. That, I've said, you know.
I just think that though, yeah, to kind of contradict myself now, yeah, the pitching let us down, but I feel like we kind of, as shocked as we want to be about how, or try to pretend to be about the outcome of how things ended, what it really comes down to is that they did not address the elephant in the room, and that was the hitting. I mean, come on, you and
Which
I
was
have.
Vogelbach. Which is
Well, no, it was
Vogelbach.
no, it was rough. It was rough. No. What it comes down to is, and I said it in when it happened, trading, JD Davis. Okay, he wasn't a make or break player. I get it. That's about money or whatever. You want to get that money off the books because, or whatever the case may be.
Or they just want JD off the team. I think
Or
they
maybe,
just wanted him.
yeah, maybe he didn't think he was a good fit or whatever the case may be. But you're to turn around and say, oh, we got 35-year-old Darren Ruff, who,
37, I think.
regardless, it doesn't, age doesn't matter at this point. But the fact that you're trying to turn around and say, we got a guy who could hit lefties, that's great, but he's gonna play what, like maybe 3 out of 5 days a week, if anything, and
Yeah.
and you're kind of putting yourself in a box. And I feel like the Mets have, for as long as you and I have been alive, the Mets put themselves in these boxes to try and justify stupid situations, and you saw it in I believe it was game two, if I'm not mistaken, or game three. I believe it was game two because Snell was on the mound. How pathetic Darren Ruff was in the box. I mean, yeah, there's your guy who could hit lefty, striking out twice.
Mhm.
So I think that really needs to be addressed. I really think there needs to be. I mean, let's face it. Ruff is not going to be on this team next year. I think there's going to be a lot of players that are not going to be here next year, and I think that's
Well,
going to start.
yeah, dude, like half the team are free agents. So,
Yeah, I mean
you
that
know.
that also that also helps the situation as well. But you know, if you look, and a lot of Met fans are already saying, "Oh, free agency, we're going to get Judge," and I don't mind getting Judge. My only issue is length of contract. He is 30 years old. He does get hurt a lot, and at this point, I think Uncle Stevie's going to throw 600 million at him. If he does, he does. I don't care. As long as the guy
Exactly.
comes and
It's not our money, right?
no, it's not
So
our money.
it's not our money. So and to even go back with so the Mets last year were a 77 win team. This year
Yeah,
101, right? So this was the second year of the Steve Cohen experiment, right? So we'll see what year three brings, right? It's hard to really top 101 season, but it's pretty easy to top losing a wild card series. So expectations going into, I expect Steve Cohen to just throw
clean
out
house.
money, or
He should.
just throw out money. Who knows? I'm really intrigued what they do. I know we'll maybe get into it in the show whether they extend the Grom, what to do with the Grom. Diaz, Nimmo, Lugo. There's a lot of spots on these team now, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not really sure I trust Billy Epler to take us to the next step based off the in-season trades he made this year. So, but we'll see.
I mean,
Unfortunately, this is another end of the year for the Mets where we're discussing their offseason 2 weeks, 2 games into 3 games into October, right?
yeah.
So you know,
Well, if you look at it though, I'm not ready to jump on the let's get Billy Epler's job train just yet. I feel
no,
like I think, yeah, and I feel like this is the case with a lot of GMs. There's always things that you're gonna fail to address. I mean, no team that has won the World Series has ever been perfect. They've always had faults. If they were perfect, they'd be winning 162 games and go undefeated in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, obviously the big glaring thing that was staring the Mets in the face was pitching, hitting. I mean, well, hitting in certain situations this year, and they didn't really address it, like you said. They got the elephant in the room, Danny Donuts. Who, by the way, listen, I love Daniel Vogelbach. I don't think he has a future on this team. I think he was great for what we had this year. I think the guys loved him right away, and that's what made the team even more likable. But I think really this offseason is really going to be a telling of what kind of, is Steve Cohen going to be able to follow through on his promise to make this a top tier team and make the Mets a destination. Obviously the free agent pool isn't really exactly luxurious this year. I mean, the top two guys that come to mind that I think the Mets should 100% get both of them is Trey Turner and Aaron Judge. And I think a lot of the other moves that are going to need to be made are going to have to be through trades, obviously. But yeah, I mean, you look at this team right now, there's probably five guys that are going to be on this team next year.
Mm,
Lindor, Alonso, Alvarez. I don't even know if we're going to even classify him as being on the team, considering
mm,
he played in not even a handful of games. And quite frankly, Brian, there was the bottom of the bottom of the ninth when the Mets in Game 3 were up, where we're coming up to the plate. Nito was leading off, and I think anybody that was watching the game at that time that was a Met fan said they should pitch hit Nito right here, and of course they didn't. And that goes into a whole nother conversation, which I don't even think we should have at this point. Is that Buck didn't really do a good job throughout the series with some of the moves he made throughout the games. I think he got a little bit of it in his head. I think maybe, hopefully not, because I love Buck Showalter. I think he's the best manager the Mets have had since maybe Bobby Valentine. Uh,
mm,
and
mm, mm.
but I think he's going to be maybe one of those guys who great in season manager. Once he gets to the playoffs, he kind of gets in his own head and over manages. But who are you looking, or what positions are you looking that the Mets that need to upgrade the most this offseason?
Well, it depends. Again, I think it depends who they keep in terms of their own free agents, right? Adam, do you want to extend a 5-6 year deal to Brendan Nimmo at 30
No,
years old?
I don't
No.
think, because I would assume he's at this point in his career where I think Nimmo's going to look for money uh,
Yeah, as
for a
he
lot.
should.
No, absolutely,
Nimmo's a great player.
he's a great player, but he's not.
He's just always hurt.
He's
Except this
not.
season. This season, he played 145 games, and that's the outlier, right? In his walk
Yeah.
year. Before that, Nimmo's always a good player. He's always has some nick here or there. And at 30, going into 32, 33, 34, 35, are the Mets willing to allocate 25 mil per him? I don't think so. But when you look at the free agent market for center fielder, he's the best center fielder in the market, right? So
Eh.
are you going to move Marte to center, sign Judge to play right? Is that the where you would want to go? I mean,
I was thinking more. You put Judge in left, and you put Trey Turner in center, and then if something happens in Lindor, you could just put him at short. I
dude,
think
how much
that's.
are you ready to drop? Like, is Stevie Cohen ready to drop like $1 billion this year?
I don't think it's going to get $1 billion. I think.
How? What type of contract is Judge getting?
I think it depends on. Well, I think the big destination for him obviously is the Giants. Now, the Giants, I
Mm,
don't feel are a team that are going to be kind of they're going to use the fact that Judge is from that area as really
sure.
try and get a little bit of a discount from him. I don't think this is going to be much of a bidding war. I think whoever gets him, if it's the Mets or the Dodgers, I think it will be like some astronomical number, maybe 500, 550, maybe even close to 60, depending on incentives. 600.
Yeah.
So um
So exactly. So 600 peak.
so all
How
right.
much?
So
How much of a contract is Trey Turner getting?
how old is
Keeping in
Trey?
mind, yeah, I think around 30. So keep in mind, Seager this past offseason got some. God, the Giants suck, man. Not the Giants, the Rangers. Rangers. Apologies. So they gave Seager what, a 10-year, 30, three
Something
hundred twenty
ridiculous.
million dollar deal. Are you
Something
telling
ridiculous.
me Trey Turner's not going to get a better deal than that?
It's hard. I don't know, because I feel like players that hit free agency that are still very much in the prime of their careers and that are at that 30 mark. Because Turner does get hurt here and there, not as frequently as Judge, but I don't know. I feel like that's when you start to see a little bit wear and tear on these guys. If and it also goes for guys like Nimmo as well. Maybe like you said to your point before, if he's a little bit younger, if we're talking about Nimmo being 28, okay, yeah, maybe I'll give him that money. But 30, injury prone, doesn't really like hit for power, because that's where the game is now. Yeah, he
Sure,
gets on base and that's phenomenal and I love it, but he doesn't
sure.
steal a whole ton of bases.
No, yeah,
So,
not his
I
game.
could see, and real quick on Nimmo, I mean, I would not be shocked if he maybe overbids himself, kind of what we saw with Conforto. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up in Oakland playing a little money ball. I think the Oakland is
Or going to
right up,
Colorado. Going to Colorado.
or
Like
Colorado.
those
Yeah,
those
he'll go
were
to
always like
Colorado,
the
or I could even see the Yankees getting him. As kind of a delayed replacement for Brett Gardner. For
well,
but
well, well. Wait, so Adam, taking back that, so
yeah,
you just said Nimmo at 30, being a little older, injury prone. How about DeGrom? He's going to be 35 years old. What are we doing? Are you
I
giving DeGrom 5 years at 45? You know he's going to get more than what Scherzer got. Scherzer's making
he'll.
what 40, 43. So
Well, I think Degrom, if he does sign somewhere else, I think it's going to be around 50 for 5. I don't think it's going to be with a team that has any remote chance of winning a pennant anytime soon. But because the good thing about Atlanta is that they've locked up a lot of their starters, so we won't have to deal with him going to Atlanta because they have no room in their rotation for that. But yeah, going back
But
as
I think,
before,
but didn't Buster Only remember he had some report like 2 months ago where he said the Braves are the favorites to land Degrom,
yeah, but
and
that
you're
was
like,
before they extended all their starters. So that, but my thing is going back to Trey Turner. I mean, if I had to put a dollar figure on it, I would say 4 years with a fifth year option for about 115.
no, he's getting at least 8 years, at least.
Really?
If Corey Seager could get 10 years, $320 million, Trey Turner is such a better player than him, has position versatility, and there's no way in any world Seager get a better contract than Trey Turner.
We'll have to see what kind of market it is this offseason
Yeah,
because
we have to.
I think it all really. I think everybody's looking at what Judge is going to get, what crazy number he's going to get, and I think once he signs, it'll really you'll start to see the dominoes fall everywhere else with other players. So we'll have to see. I think Degrom is. I think he would be foolish, and the same thing with Nibbo. I think and maybe this is a little biased from me. I think that those guys would be foolish to leave New York. I mean, yeah, nobody watches the West Coast teams. I mean, really, the only people that watch the West Coast teams are the people on the West Coast. Nobody's going to stay up 10 o'clock. And I don't care who you are. Nobody stays up at 10 o'clock to watch Mike Trout. So why would they stay up to watch Jacob DeGrom or And I'm talking about the average baseball fan, not the diehards. So I think whether you're a Judge or you're a DeGrom or I think it would be foolish to leave the market you're in. Yeah, it sucks to by the time September rolls around in the playoffs, you're freezing your ass off. But you know what? Listen, you're playing in one of the biggest markets in the country in baseball, and whenever you're on a primetime game, everybody's watching you. Everybody's watching you. Everybody's going to know your name. Everybody's going to know your face. And as you and I know, Brian, the more you're known out there, the more money you get, the more endorsements and all that. So I think it would be a little foolish, because I think eventually in the end, you're going to get the same money, if not more, alongside with endorsements and all that stuff.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So looking at the Met team real quick to wrap things up, who do you want back? You're the GM right now. Steve Cohen has called you up, said, listen, Billy Epler has taken the offseason to work on his pottery. Brian, I need you to make the moves for me. Uh, who are you keeping? Who are you letting walk? And who are you trading away?
Well, I think first of all, I have to give a big apology to Edwin Diaz. I've always
Same.
been a big hater of the Edwin Diaz hater club. I was drinking that haterade pretty hard at Edwin Diaz. But this year he proved us wrong, man. He pitched
Yeah.
to a 1.33 ERA. He was dominant all year. I think the last time he had a blown save was in May against the Giants. He was just unstoppable.
Yeah.
So you got to find a way to get him back, which I think he wants to come back. I think, he's truly embraced being a New York Met. And I don't think after trading away Jared Kelnick, shout out to the Mariners. Yeah, shout out to Jared Kelnick and the Mariners. But I don't think Steve Cohen will let him walk. I think that's definitely one guy that they will be jumping on right away to sign. DeGrom, I don't. That's a tough one, man. Obviously, we've been blessed to have him be the best pitcher in baseball for 5+ years, 6 years since he's come up, right? Um, but he's made 6 starts, 7, 8 starts over the past 2 years. He had a break, so I don't know if I want to spend 50 million per year for DeGrom. But again, not my money. So Steve
Yeah,
Cohen, do it. Nimmo. I love Nimmo. I've loved Nimmo as a player. Whenever they had talks about Conforto versus Nimmo, I was always Team Nimmo. Conforto was never my type of guy. My dad, when the Mets first drafted him in '05, in '06 during spring training, my dad was like, man, his lefty swing might be the best lefty swing since Strawberry. He was such a natural hitter. And then when he was in the majors, he was a 230 hitter, 240 hitter, right? He never really had that
yeah,
300 or 300 average, 330 gap to gap hitter because he just became a strictly pull hitter, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
but that was Nimmo, right?
yeah.
So God bless him. I mean Conforto. But Nimmo, I think he's going. And who else we got? Lugo, I would try to keep. Ottavino, I think he's gone at 37. He's probably going to try to find somewhere to give him more money. He had a career
Yeah,
year, man. Where would the
yeah,
Mets be without Ottavino as well in that
yeah.
back end? So, um, and who else is there? Who else am I missing?
Bassett, Bassett's a free agent.
Bassett's gone, I think.
Really?
This is his first free agency. At
Yeah,
34, he's gonna try to bank a 4 or 5 year deal. And even though he had a pretty solid year, he was probably the Mets' most consistent pitcher all year,
yeah,
besides a few up and down starts in May, June, right, where he had some lull. But I think he's gone. And Taiwan Walker has an option. I think he's gone.
yeah.
Carrasco, I think, has some other options. So, at the end of the day, they could be left with Scherzer as the only pitcher under contract in the starting rotation. So, it's interesting times in Metland, but, we have an owner who's shown a willingness to spend. So, I feel that we're going to be in on every major free agent. So, let's buckle up. And, in Steve Cohen's introductory press conference 2 years ago, when he first bought the team, when do you see the Mets winning a World Series? 3 to 5 years. We'll
Yeah.
be entering year 3, Stevie. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Yeah. I mean, my only thing that you failed to address in your brief 5 seconds as general manager of this club is James McCann. He's not worth the money. Get rid of him. I don't care.
I would actually give him a 10-year extension. Just blank check. James McCann, do whatever you want. You're the heart and soul of this team, James. This team would be nothing without you and your 180 batting average. So, James, we love you. Stay as long as you can, dude. Maybe he could be mascot. Maybe the Mr. Met guy. Maybe we need a little rotation. We could put him behind that, get some more use out of him. A ball boy. See what he could do over there. But he's not even a major league ball player at this point. It's just he
It
is,
was, yeah.
dude. Me and you would have better at bats most of the times than James McCann, and
Yeah. When he's
it's a
healthy.
glaring hole when he's healthy.
Yeah.
But we have Alvarez, so and that's also something to look forward to, man.
Yeah.
We have two of the top 25 prospects in baseball, whether you look at it in Beatty and Alvarez. I'm pumped for that, right? So we have a
Yeah.
potential franchise third baseman that we haven't had since David Wright, and we have a potential franchise catcher that we haven't had in Piazza, and cornerstones at catcher and third base and first base and shortstop.
Yeah.
So the infield should be pretty set next year, over the next few years. Hopefully McNeil too, and it's just about finding the right fits, right? We're a
Yeah.
100-win team,
Yeah.
right?
We've proven it.
But we've proven it. We just have to get over that hump. And,
Yeah.
I think we should put our faith in Stevie because, what else do we have?
Yeah.
We can't go back.
No, there's no going back. But yeah, I think, as disappointing as this year And I think what you were trying to get to, as disappointing as this year was, I think that this was a good step in the right direction. Like you said, we went from 77 to 101 wins.
Yeah.
So, that's a good step in the right
Adam,
direction.
this is the best team in our lifetime, regular season. This is the best team
Yeah.
we've ever had in our lifetime,
Yeah.
record wise at least.
Yeah.
I was debating, maybe the '06 Mets. Maybe they had probably a better lineup, but they had no rotation. When
Yeah.
Pedro was gone, we had Traxel and Oliver Perez pitching in the playoffs. Right? We had the horses. We had arguably the two best starting pitchers over the past 8, 9 years in baseball,
Yeah.
and they didn't get the job done. They didn't. In Atlanta, they didn't. Scherzer did in the playoffs. DeGrom did. But, this team is built on pitching. Regardless
Yeah.
of how the lineup is, this team was built on Scherzer, DeGrom being your 1-2, taking you to the World Series.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, you know what? We have a lot of off-season topics to talk about as they come up, and I can sincerely say this from me and Brian: we will be doing a lot more of these as the off-season goes along, because there is going to be a lot of moves being made, a lot of surprises coming probably, and yeah, we'll be here right along the way. And I definitely do want to have that debate with you at one point: who was better, '06 or 22? So we'll definitely do that. We're definitely going to try and get this episode up on YouTube at least every Friday, so check that out. And our social media platform handles will be down below. And drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think that the team what direction they should go in with, whether it be position or personnel or whatever. What player should they go after? Let us know in the comments below. And yeah, we'll try to do this. What do you think, Brian? Every other week? Every other week, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wait, before we sign off,
Yeah.
the beauty of being a Met fan is that we're able to just transition to other sports just so seamlessly, right? So, the baseball season ends. Being a Met fan, we know we're not going to have a deep run into October. Barely, we're never usually in October. So, we transition into other sports really quickly. So, I have my Met shirts. This is it. Season's over. It's time for Spurs, if you're a
Oh
football
my
fan,
god.
soccer fan, whatever you are. So I'm a big Spurs fan. But again, we transition even more, and it's hockey season, baby. It is Devils hockey tomorrow. Jack Hughes, MVP. This go our deep run. Devils making the playoffs this year. I know Adam's a big fan of Jack Hughes and the Devils this year, man. Come on, give it. They got a young team. They got
Yeah.
something. They got something cooking.
Yeah, they signed Andre Palat in the offseason, so that's a good addition. Now that all they need is like someone who could actually, block a shot in net, and they'll be good.
Which I think they have this year, and but I'm excited, man. And that's the beauty of being a Mets fan. And I don't even have a Jet shirt. Adam's a Giant fan. I'm a Jet fan. Football is alive in New York.
Yes.
So it's good to be a Met fan because you're able to just transition
Yeah,
into other
and,
sports.
and yeah, being a Jet fan and a Giant fan right now, give it a couple of weeks, see how the enthusiasm changes
Yeah,
after
no.
a couple of losses. So,
Who did the Giants play next week?
I don't know.
Terrific.
All right, so that's been it for the episode of the King of Queens podcast. I'm Adam. He's Brian. You stay amazing.
Be Reggie.